Hi fellow airbrushers, welcome back to episode 2 on the portrait. Now I left you off in episode 1 and we've got these pieces here. We've just started working out, we've got a bit of the face in and we're sort of mapping out in the first colour, taking it nice and light and just working these tones in, and then we'll start to darken things off, start using the shields. Now I've gone through some of the drawers in the lounge and found a few bits. I found a set of French curves. Now these are handy to have, guys. These are old school. These have been around for years, French curves, and they come in really handy, especially if you wanted to like hold up to something as big as that, a big shape like that. You can sort of near enough blank off the whole thing and then you can spray. So they're really good for pieces on your artwork, for getting shapes that you want to shield off and get some sharp lines. French curves are really good. If you get the ones that are plastic and not Maillard ones, plastic ones don't use solvent because you will melt them. But if you're using water-based acrylics, you're absolutely fine. Give them a wipe off after and they'll last you ages. I've got another set of these knocking around somewhere that I've had for years, but I've just found a sort of new set. Charity shop, 50p for a set of French curves. You cannot go wrong. The next thing that are handy to have as well are little plastic cups when you're mixing paint. I always advise you to mix your paint in a plastic cup and then get some coffee stirrers. When you're going for a £4 or £5 coffee in Costa, grab yourself a handful of the wooden sticks, chop them in half, and they're perfect for mixing your paint up. So they come in really handy. Little cheap little tips, guys. We're working from the tablet again. Now, as you can see, we're putting sort of all the inner in. Some people say, where do you start on a portrait? It's entirely up to you. Some people start with the background first. They drop the background in and they'll mask off the inner, drop all the background in, pull the masking away, and then they start working the inner. I've done this the opposite way around. I'm working the inner and then we've got to sort of mask off these outer bits to keep the overspray off the image at the front and then drop the background in. Now, a couple of ways you can do that. You could use application tape, which I've ran out of. You could put a sheet of the paper application tape over, and then you would see this image that you're painted here through the application tape. Then I would get a pencil, draw around all the outer, so all around these pieces here, take the application tape off, put it on a cut mat, cut round it, and then place that back on when you come to do the background, and then you'll mask off all these bits. You don't want to get any overspray on. So that's the way we're going to go, but I'm going to do it a different way. I've found some, these are laminating pockets. I've got a massive pack of these in the lounge I've just found in the drawer, and they will be perfect. Chop these down. I can biro on top of these like that, chop it out, and then to hold this in place, I'm just going to literally get a little bit of masking tape, roll it on itself, drop a couple of tabs of masking tape on the points, stick it back on, and then just spray the background in, holding it down. If you want to hold things down as well, say you've not got application tape and you're doing the method I'm doing, and some bits are flapping up, use your airbrush one side, then get one of your paint stirrers, and then you can always lay it across and put your finger on and press it down like that, so it holds these sharp points down. So there's all little techniques that you can use to help you get the background in if you was doing how I'm doing it now, where you've got the picture in and then you've got to put the background in. But I would recommend application tape. Buy yourself a roll of application tape because it is brilliant for airbrushing. You can make all your masks up, easy to cut with a scalpel, and it will make life a lot easier. But there are other options, and that's the option I'm going with cutting this out and holding it on. But you'll see that in the next video. We're going to concentrate on all of this, finish this off, get the darks in, and then I'll drop the background on later on. Now, everything else the same. I'm using the custom micron, and then we're going to move over to the fine spray, the AB 180, because this will be absolutely brilliant for getting these nice bold colours in the background, because this pumps the paint out, this brush, and we can get all this filled in really nice on the outer. But I just need the micron for that real precision trigger to get in on these little small pieces around here, all these little tight bits. It's a lot more got a lot more finesse with the trigger. You can really feather that trigger nice, and the air, that's one thing I do find with the Micron, it's really nice for that. So we're good to go. I've covered all the bits. I will stick with a time lapse. Enjoy the video. I'll leave the links in the description again to what I'm listening to. It's going to be something completely different this time, guys. It was sort of like house techno mix yesterday to get me sort of into it, and then today I'm just going to chill, different tunes, but they'll be in the description. So I'll see you in the first time. Right guys, a little pause. I've gone in and done some extra bits, just sort of putting the highlights in where they need to be. Gone in with the electric eraser because this is quite bright on this bit here. So I've just knocked a little bit of the paint back on this. We are going to go darker on this, around this edge, because you've got some real darks along this hairline around here. So I've put the bullets in, the first pass on the bullets, just basically gone in freehand and just gone in because it's going to be a lot darker on these bullets. You can see there it's a lot darker, so I've just put the first sort of tone in, and then we'll work the blacks on this because you've got some darker lines. We can just drop these in, sharpen these up when it comes to the outline as well. So never worry about, if you're doing it like this and you've got sort of dark outlines around it and your overspray goes over, either way, if you're going in light for a start, and then you can sharpen up with your shields and you're going over then blowouts where it's slightly gone over the edges. So you're always going to put like a dark next to it. So I never worry about if I'm sort of going over with a bit of paint, because I know I'm going to come back in and sharpen things up with shields, and you can go back over then blow-ins and it just covers it up. Worked a little bit of sort of the hair down here. It's not a realistic hair on this. These are just sort of like, it's just shaped to show you it's the shape of hair. So there's no like real full-on hair textures in this. I'm just putting some little highlights as it is on the picture. So it's all sort of quite soft really on this picture. We're going to work down and concentrate on this mask next. Get this piece in. First sort of pass to this sort of stage. Once this is all in, then we'll start mixing some black up with the ink, thin it right down, go in nice and light, and then we'll start using the shields and sharpening and putting the darks in on that, and then this will really make this pop. Then we can nip back in with the grey again and just tone things back again, pop some more highlights in, and you're sort of working backwards and forwards. If you've got highlights and sort of like pinpoint highlights, say we've got a little one in the eye here, there's a little bit on top of the eyelid. This is just to make these look a little bit more pop forward, a little bit on the lip, a little bit on the teeth. It's always good to go back in, if you've sprayed over your marking where your highlight is, just to drop it in place like I've done now, and just sort of put them in place. And then when you're working, overspray does go over these pieces and it can sort of cover up your highlight areas. So just nip them in place. Even if you get a Posca paint pen and just do a dot, just to position your highlight where it is so you don't lose track of where it is. But nice and simple, taking the time, we'll start working this mask in, this little bit of hair. That sort of is like a couple of fingers coming up here holding the mask, and it's sort of weird sort of shapes down here. They don't really make sort of sense when you look at them. Like, you can see the finger parts here, there's like a bit of hair, there's all just sort of weird shapes, and that's why I say just paint the shapes, and then when you stand back the picture takes care of itself, because it's weird looking at shapes. Your brain, you tend to think, well, what am I looking at? But just paint what you're seeing, and it's always artwork, you view it. I always got told you view it. If you've got a metre long air hose, pull your air hose out to a metre, stand back and look at it, and it can look totally different. It sometimes, when you do your artwork, you think, oh, it's not right, it's not right, it's not right, because you've been painting for quite some time. It's only until you stand back or walk away, come back to your piece of artwork with fresh eyes, and then look at it again, and then you go, yeah, that looks like the picture. And that's what happened to me on Drew Blair. I went to see Simon Murray and done a Drew Blair course, and I was painting this thing, and I thought, well, it don't look like the reference, it don't look like the reference. Simon came over and went, put the piece down, stand back and look at it, and it just, because I've been staring at this piece for so long, it's only until you come back with fresh eyes and you go, yeah, that looks pretty good actually, it looks like the actual reference. So yeah, just give yourself breaks, don't paint for too long because you'll strain your eyes, and come back with fresh eyes, have a break, come back, paint for a bit, and just keep doing that. Don't hammer at it for 6-7 hours straight, have a break. So we'll move on. I've babbled on and long enough. We'll crack on with this piece here, and I'll give you another chat in a bit. See you next time. A little pause and I'll talk you through what I did. Now you see me start working this in. Now just all freehand. Now when you're doing shading like sort of this bit here, it's nothing pretty because it's the first pass, and we've got some real sharp darks to put in here, bits in the eyes. This edge here will be sharpened up because you've got black and a real sharp line around here, so this will be sharpened up with shields. We've got some dark drop shadows around the finger, so I can hold the shield, spray, and it'll sharpen that finger up. So you're basically going in nice and light, and as I say, once you use the shields with the next tone, that's when you can really take your time to sharpen the edges that need to be sharpened up, and it just makes the image pop forward, putting the next layer in. So we've got the masking, we've dropped the colour down here, first pass on that, done a little bit more around here. So the next stage on this will be to mix some of the darker tone up, and then we'll start working in all this round here. We can drop some darks in here, and then you'll just sort of see this more come to life. It's that next tone that just makes it sort of like, it'll bring this forward more. Once we start putting the blacks in here, around this bit here, around the bullets, around this little bit here, and this bit here starts to go dark, and here, this will look a lot whiter. It'll just pop it forward because you're staring at a white background. You tend to sort of get lost with your tone, so it's good if you've got to this stage and then you don't want to jump and go too dark, just drop some of the real darks and just pick out some of the darks around the face, and then you'll really see how light the actual image is on the inner. It is quite surprising. So as I say, nice and slow. We've got loads of highlights we can pop out on this. We've got a highlight along here, so I can knock these back with an eraser once we get the other darks in. It'll just make these really pop forward. So nothing's changed. A few stencils you see me use. Custom micron again. Same mix, the Payne's Grey with the orange, a few drops of orange in it just to tone it and give it that nice sort of greyer look instead of like the real blue one we did the other day. It really got a blue shift in it. It just knocks it back. So we'll move on to the FW inks. I'm going to thin this right down, and we'll just start dropping the darks in, work at the top again around here, and we'll work down. See you in the next time lapse. guys, we are going to wrap this one up in this episode. I'll give you a little talk through what I did. You've seen in that time lapse, and you can see now how it pops more. We've dropped the blacks in, literally went round with the shield. This is the first pass of black. I was struggling with the FW because it's really warm in here. And I only gave it a quick blast out in the micron. It needs a clean because there was some of the Createx left in there, and I just sort of like blasted through quick. Put the FW in and it was sort of struggling, it was choking up a bit. But we got the first pass down nice and clean, and this is what I mean by when you start using the stencils. The beauty of the micron is it blows very soft. The air pressure, you'll notice that if you've got one to a normal airbrush, if I hooked the fine spray up, I'd really have to dial the pressure in at 20 psi because it really forces out. But the micron's really soft, so you just see me literally holding the shield, working round, and it just tightens up all these little shapes. Now this black's settled down, it's gone a lot sort of like very flat. So that's the first coat. We'll go back in, and we're going to go back in with the greys, tone this more back so we can really pop the highlights out, because some bits need to go a lot darker, but it's getting there, guys. So we've used shields where we needed to sharpen the bits up, and as I say, once you put the blacks in here, it just brings this forward, and then you can see where your tones are going. We've still got to go darker here, around here. We've got to go a bit darker round here, on the shading round here, and in the eye now, around the top of this. A little bit darker around this piece here, bit darker here. We've got a lot of darks to go around the top piece here. Moving down to the mask, we've got some more darks to go in this, bit darker around the eye, then that will pop this highlight out a bit more. We've got the eye highlight at the bottom of the eye. We've got one to drop in at the top. So you're basically just looking round. We've got a lot darker to go on the finger and in here to make these highlights pop out. Because wherever you see a bright highlight, you have a dark next to it. That's what makes it really pop out and go bright. So just look to your highlights and you'll see your tones from your highlight to your dark on how sort of bright and dark you've got to go. But it's getting there. So in the next episode, we will continue on with this bottom piece, getting this piece in. I'll take you through the masking stage of masking this out and chopping it out. We'll drop the background in, tidy all little bits up, and it will be done. I did use the texture stencil just here because you probably can't see it on the tablet, but on this piece here, there's that sort of texture in on here. So I just dropped a little bit of texture, and we're going to drop my own sort of little texture pieces, because it's very sort of random. There's a little bit on this round here that's a little bit textury around here, a few little dots up around this bit. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget, if you are new to this channel and you haven't subscribed and you're enjoying the content, click that subscription, press the notification so you don't miss out on the next and up and coming videos on the channel. Drop your comments, guys. You know I always get back to you in the comments. We'll have a chat. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in part 3. Cheers.